The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Jenny Bailey from the Agile Business Consortium, and this is the Agile Business Conference 2018 Reflective Insights webinar program. This one is brought to you in association with Agile Centre, certified Scrum, Agile leadership, capability training, scaled Agile training even, and consultancy. We have to mention our sponsors because obviously the Agile Business Conference can't really happen without our amazing sponsors. So we have to really thank them. This whole webinar series is actually brought to you with a different sponsor each time. We've been going now with the Agile Business Conference for, it will be 17 years very soon. So like I say, it's a big thank you to our sponsors. Now we're conducting a series of these webinar, post-conference webinars anyway, where I'll be chatting to some of this year's conference speakers and also people that have been influential, that have made the event such a success. We're recording this broadcast, so you'll be able to watch it again in the future. It will be posted up on our website. And we're also happy to take a few questions, so please put them through to me using the chat box on the webinar program on the platform there. And if time permits, we'll get through as many as we can. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, if you didn't actually attend the conference and you're not completely aware of what it's all about, the Agile Business Conference happened back in the 26th and 27th of September in London. Again, it was in its 16th year, and we're going to be going into our 17th year very soon. Now, this year our theme was all about creating Generation Agile, where we looked at how we can prepare a generation to be successful in an uncertain world. And this was explored along the Agile principles, really, and looking through the lenses of people, strategy, and delivery. So my guest today is David Kershaw, and he's from Delta Procurement. He's a procurement professional, and he actually gave us an amazing, fantastic case study in the delivery track at the conference, where he was actually featuring GDS and his experience in working in big, complex organizations. So good morning, David, and thank you for joining us today. Hello.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you very much for having me here.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. It's lovely for you to take the time, so we really, really do appreciate it. Now, obviously, you were, your background. Tell us a little bit about your background, actually, because you've been working in procurement for quite some time now, and you've worked with some big organisations. So, how did you get into all this, David?
Well, quite some years ago, I had just finished university. I was looking for a job, and there was a job going in the local authority where I lived in Bournemouth Borough Council, and I applied to be an assistant procurement officer. And my job there was to write out in triplicate carbon copies purchase orders for procurement, and that was very interesting. And so, in short, I've managed to work from the bottom and proceeded to different areas in procurement, and since then I've been doing this for say 12 years now.
Okay. And I guess that's really good. When you start with an organization, you start at, like you say, maybe at the bottom of something, you can really develop, grow your understanding, and all the way through that process, you were thinking, this isn't quite right, weren't you?
Well, exactly, yeah. There seems always, since then, and since I've been working in different government or public sector organizations, including some charitable organizations, I've always thought there are bits in procurement, commercial, supply chain, however it appeals to you, there are bits that are just not right in it, be that over process, over governance, the lack of understanding from both the procurement camp and the users of the procurement services. And I've always tried to, well, I've always challenged things. I've always tried to reduce the burden of all the processes and look at ways of doing things quicker, slicker, and better, really.
Okay, so you're really making a difference now, and I know you're keen to share your experiences of how the case study that you presented went at the conference. But let's talk a little bit of just about your understanding of Agile first, because you first came across that, didn't you, in, was it 2013?
Yeah, exactly. And as I mentioned at the conference in September, and I'll mention it again, and I was pushed down the swear word that is Prince 2 for some people. I was pushed down that route through my chartership through the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, and I did that, and I thought that was great and all tickety-boo, and I had this qualification. And I then had a job working at the Government Digital Service, GDS. And I tell this story how one day, day one of the job, I was wearing my suit and tie, my Prince 2 manual under my arm. I went into the revolving doors. I didn't even get out of the revolving doors. I revolved all the way around and shot back out the way I came in. And I say that because...
Was that a metaphor in a way? Yeah.
Yeah, in a way, because literally the next day, the tie came off, the Prince 2 manual was burned, and within that week, by the end of the week, and I'm not one for saying that clothing is important in terms of what you wear, but by the end of the week, I was in jeans and a t-shirt.
Right, so it's fair to say you settled into it.
Well, I had to, because you know, these people that I say these people, I became one of those people. These people were talking to each other, about different things. They were allowing people to be involved and understand the issues. They were delivering things quickly rather than waiting months on end. They were doing sort of everything they were doing was based on what the user needed rather than what people thought the user wanted, or in fact what the powers that be wanted the thing to be. So I was exposed to this thing called Agile, and I didn't really have a clue what it was about. But what I did know is that, and this sounds really silly, but people were smiling, people were talking, and people were sitting with each other and actually delivering things in like every day, and I never come across that.
Really, that's incredible.
Yeah, so I just sort of started to be a bit nosy, and I have. This is not a place for me to sort of sell my blogs as such. They're all on my LinkedIn account. I wrote a blog about this, but you know, I tell the story that I saw these people standing up firstly, and they were talking about all the things that they had to do, all the things they were doing, and all the things they've done, and they'd shipped to somebody. I didn't understand this shipping thing. And as someone who studied procurement supply chain, shipping to me is physical shipping, shipping goods across the sea. So I started getting interested in this, and I said to these people, excuse me, can I come and join your chat? And why have you got these things on a board? And why have you got people's people's names attached to various actions?
Right.
And anyway, I just started to learn it more and more, and I realized that there are lots of benefits to applying various elements of what I've been learning to my profession, that is procurement.
That's right. I mean, that there was a big sort of change that was required in procurement, really. Like you're saying, the more you were learning and the more the experience you were taking on, you realized that the legislation was holding back and the lack of communication, maybe. So when you did walk into GDS and experience that, it was almost in the fast lane for you, wasn't it? And it all came under the banner of Agile in lots of ways.
Yeah, and please don't get me wrong, Jenny. Legislation is legislation.
I agree.
It's not just important. It is what it is.
Yes.
You have to do the legislation. You have to apply and adhere to the legislation. But what I've noticed in my profession, and I'm speaking purely from a public sector procurement professional here, I've noticed that what happens is there is legislation. Things happen in procurement, whatever they happen, there are legal challenges or threats to legal challenge. Policy is then created to protect an organization, but unfortunately, very rarely is policy revisited. So a policy will be created to protect an organization from X threat, whatever that threat is. And for me, I would like to increase the challenge of those policies frequently. That's a good thing. Iterate those policies and also be proportionate with those policies. And that's not what we are very good at in procurement. So without a doubt, legislation is important. And what I've tried to do over the last few years, it's my job to know the legislation.
Okay.
I go in and I work with, I used to say client. I don't say client anymore. We call it a multidisciplinary team.
Right.
So me and the team come together, and there are people from the dev side, there are people from delivery side, there are people from product side, etc., user researchers and design, and all those good things you'd expect from this world we work in. And we come together and I say, look, I'm an expert in this field. I know the regulations. Let me tell you a bit about what you need to know. They tell me a bit they need to know. And we try and reduce the the policy that's been placed on people through the regulations. So it's all about being proportionate with those, and that's why I see the slide you've put up now about this way, that way, the other way. That's where confusion happens, and we have to make it a bit simpler for users of the procurement service.
Yeah, I mean, that became very clear to you, didn't it, by going through that process, really? Because since then, you've obviously been working in a lot of organisations where it's complex process, isn't it, to really get through and understand?
Exactly, and over the last sort of few years, or quite some years actually, I go into organisations that are trying to do things that are difficult or complex, or organisations that are perhaps their delivery is going off track somewhat. And what I do from day one, I get all the things put on the table. Now, we don't know what all those things are from day one, but instead of running around like headless chickens trying to keep various bosses happy, we become a multidisciplinary team firstly, and we then identify what we've done so far, and we accept that actually doing the minimum is often quite good. In procurement, it's very easy to do a gold-plated service when actually you don't need to have a gold-plated service.
Sure.
If you can come up with and deliver the minimum thing that is required to satisfy genuine user needs, and that's very important in the public sector. If you can do that, then yes, iterate your services as they go on, and you can make them better. And even better for me is we are teaching non-procurement people about procurement. So the transfer of knowledge is also happening. And also for me, I also get to learn more about Agile, because I'm very much a learner still in that space.
Sure. I loved it in your presentation when you said after you'd worked in this organisation for a little bit, then you went out down the road and bought a whiteboard and walked back with it and put it on the board and did the whole, the to-do, doing and done.
Yeah.
And how that came about. It was just such a clarity, I think, a moment for you of right, this is what we need. And you got a few strange looks, did you, doing that?
Well, yeah, let's just tell you a bit about that, because that's important.
Sure.
So I was asked to help out in a government program, and I was actually based at number 70 Whitehall, which is the Cabinet Office building, so quite an important building in the public sector sphere. And my first day, I realised that all of these things had to be done and looked at, but people were unsure about the ordering. They were adamant that there was a sequential order to do things. So I popped up to the Strand into a stationer's shop, bought the biggest whiteboard I could find, bought some Post-it notes and some pens, and I walked back. Now, it was very odd walking into the building with this thing, because it's not really the thing that people do in that building. And secondly, trying to get through the security with that was quite troublesome. But more importantly, I went straight into the office, and the people I was working with at the time hadn't had experience of this delivery method before. And I kept it really simple for the first few weeks. What we're actually doing now, do we need to be doing it? Yes or no? Actually, we say we're doing it, but is it good enough to be shipped? So let's move that in the done column. Or do we have to do it now? Can we move it to do in the future? Or even more so, can we take it off the list at all? Do we really need to do it? And what happened was, over the time, we saw that many things ended up going back in the to-do column, but we challenged each one of those. So in fact, half of them came off the list because they wouldn't actually need to do them for this particular procurement activity we were doing. About a quarter of them were shipped early. Again, in the public sector, it's all about sequential ordering, or that is what people have been conditioned to do. You cannot do X until you've done Y, etc., etc. But I challenge that and say, well, actually, can we do some things early? Can we get them out there? Can we get them out to suppliers? Because this is the whole point of Agile procurement, is getting things out to suppliers or innovators as soon as possible, accepting that it's not finished, accepting it's not perfect, and and letting the supply base and the innovators and other experts comment, give feedback, say where your thing is slightly wrong or not right, add value early, so the service actually is the best it can be for the particular users that it wants to be.
Sure, absolutely. And through this process, you in your case study as well, you shared a few points, didn't you? There's some things you actually learned through that process, like you were saying about blockers, for instance, and how they can operate, or dysfunction, maybe the actual team and how everyone works, and the order of the delivery.
Yeah, and again, within the public sector, it's a very hierarchical system. Everyone has a boss that has to be checked by their boss and their boss and their boss.
Of course.
Unfortunately, the appetite to deliver quickly is not really there, because people are very afraid of, everyone's got mortgages and rent to pay, and they don't want to upset their boss by doing something wrong. So the biggest were actually people who were not involved in the project we were working on or the projects we worked on, but we had to keep them always informed. So we rejigged it a bit, and we were saying, look, do you genuinely need to be informed? If you want to be informed and know what's going on, come to our daily stand-ups or come to our fortnightly show and tells. If you're that busy that you can't come to see what we're up to, that is fine, but please attend our fortnightly show and tells, where we will actually show you. In fact, we removed the tell because that became a bit of a negative for some people. We actually showed what we were doing, and we moved it to show and listen. So we'd show the thing we'd been created in the last fortnight sprint. We'd listen to feedback. So the senior people that were blocking previously were more knowledgeable about the things we were doing, were more knowledgeable about the thing we were trying to do, were more knowledgeable about the people working on the project we were working on, and also were still able to give their views openly, which actually, when you make things open, people are far more honest. So instead being pulled into a room by your boss and being told that they don't like this thing you're doing, put it in an open room. This is an office. In an office where people are working, and you just do your show and tell, your show and tell, your show and listen in an open plan office, so everyone can listen and get involved, because you don't want to miss that person who has very, very discrete expertise in something that you're doing.
Yes, and you want their input, don't you? You want everyone's input when it comes to that. And like you say about multidisciplinary teams, did you get a lot of resistance with that process, though, out of interest?
Yeah, you will always get resistance, because unfortunately there are labels attached to Agile, like there are labels attached to procurement, and unfortunately the labels are both opposites. So for me, and this is my view only, the label attached to procurement is suited and booted, very slow, governance heavy, always say no, lots of quotes and tenders, lots of terms and conditions, takes ages to get a purchase order, and procurement people always say no. The view that procurement people have of Agile people, again, I'm putting that in a big bracket there.
Sure.
Of Agile people is jeans and t-shirts, frappa latte drinking, get to work at 11 o'clock in the morning, texting, using things online, never writing anything down, and never getting anything approved. Now, I know that those things are both different.
Sure.
Of course. Equally, what I'm trying to do is find a middle ground, and this is what this Agile procurement movement I'm trying to create, and it's been going for quite some years now. There's been about 8 to 10 of us in this underground Agile procurement movement from both procurement side and Agile delivery side. And actually, since the event that I was fortunate to be able to speak at, this has just grown significantly.
That's fantastic.
Not just interest, but also involvement.
That's good. Well, tell us a little bit about that, because I know you almost describe it as a tribe, don't you? You're all sort of coming together. And I think Mirko Kleiner's involved as well now, isn't he?
Yeah, so there's some really good experiences coming through. And, we had the original underground movement of the sort of the tribe of 10 of us that were mostly involved in the public sector. But actually, since the Agile Business Conference 2018, we've had so many people approach us. I say us, it's sort of me at the moment trying to forward all this. But we've had Mirko Kleiner. He's a great advocate of this. He obviously comes from a dev side, which is quite interesting to get his view. He's got some fascinating ideas. He was showing me some of these ways of doing agile contracting.
Yes.
Agile pricing as well, and using agile delivery methods to actually run a competition in a room. Absolutely great. And he and I are going to be hopefully sharing some information in this space moving forwards. We've also had people from the different group. These were the guys that put on the first Agile Unconference earlier this year.
Right.
You know, Rachel Murphy, she was has worked in the public sector before, and she was getting, I think, slightly annoyed that procurement wasn't doing its job or preventing her to deliver.
Right.
So she invested some money to do the first Agile Procurement Conference, and I'm going to try and convince her to do that again, which I'd welcome many people to come to.
Right.
We've now got a LinkedIn group, Agile Procurement LinkedIn group, which is nearly at 200 people.
Fantastic.
So again, it's small, but it's getting there. I've also had contact from people in the finance world. Can you imagine applying agile methods, even just basic, simple ones?
Yes. Yes.
The world of finance. I mean, this is going to be great because again, finance.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Sorry, Jenny.
No.
Like finance are all those people that are stuck in the corner that no one ever speaks to until March, when they need to spend all the money, and then when they need to bid for new money. So let's get those guys involved as well.
I mean, well, it has to go that way, doesn't it? Because Agile's coming through all organisations at all levels now. And I think the conference taught a lot of people that as well. I mean, you mentioned their Agile contracts. I think 2 years ago, the consortium commissioned a solicitor to actually write us an Agile contract that we have on the website for all to look at, really. So we were kind of looking at this a good few years ago, really. And then also our relationship with Beyond Budgeting is extremely strong. And we've done webinars with them as well, David, where obviously we're informing people about forecasting, and it doesn't need to be a yearly plan anymore. It's more of an iterative development process than that. So I think it was a natural thing, really, for procurement to be really shaken up in some respects, I guess, to be looked at in this agile focus, similar to HR that is being done now as well. It's going through all organisations at all levels.
Yeah, and I think it needs to. I'm not going to sort of stand here saying that it is going to solve everything, but I think if we can just be proportionate with what we do, have a multidisciplinary team, look at all the different options we have, work together. I mean, if we look at the digital and tech space, where you build things quickly, you ship them when quickly to test them to see if they're right.
Yes.
Then you make changes and you ship them again. You do some user research. Applying contracts to that world is quite tricky. However, the trickiness of it shouldn't get in the way, because it's absolutely essential and needed. I was fortunate to work on the digital marketplace on G Cloud and the digital outcomes specialist frameworks, which are sort of been quite revolutionary for public sector procurement. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say they're absolutely perfect, but they have made absolute leaps and bounds in making procurement slicker, quicker, and better. And that is because we've applied agile delivery methods to them. So if now we can look into the legal space of how we can make these contracts more applicable, so delivery can happen and suppliers can get paid. Yes. For what they've done. Equally, the entity, the public sector entity that is buying the services, can own stuff as well. Now we have to realise that we've gone from 6-month, 1-year procurements to fortnightly, or 3-weekly, or 4-weekly, or even daily. We may have to buy some services on a daily or hourly basis, because that's the world we're moving in at the moment.
Absolutely. I really liked your term minimum viable procurement as well. I thought that obviously we would do the MVP on lots of other things, but to add the procurement there, I thought was quite apt really in your
Yeah, well,
presentation.
I've rightfully nicked it from Agile, and it was really quite, I wanted to, I was trying to think, I don't want to lose too many people on that, but I'd be silly not to make the most out of that. But actually, being 100% serious now, that's what it is about. So all the things I've mentioned to you now, all the things I blog about, all the things I try and do, I try and promote. We had an article in the MCIPS magazine, which is our trade journal, about agile procurement. All the things we try and do, they're all based around minimum viable procurement.
Yeah.
And the viable is the legislation, is can we help our colleagues out? Can we, is the supplier good enough? It doesn't have to be outstanding. The supplier doesn't have to be excellent. The supplier has to be a healthy supplier, i.e. Be what they say they are and have enough resources to do what they say they can do, but also they have to be able to fully do what they can do in it to a good level. And that's what minimum viable product procurement is for me, is applying all those different things to do the minimum that is required.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and also, let's look at the lessons learned as well, because I think that's quite interesting as well. So you've gone through this process on many of these complex organizations that you've worked for, and obviously the work that you've actually been doing, because like you say, they are highly complex government programs where you've been applying agile techniques in. So lessons learned, can you just take us through some of these?
Yeah, I think hopefully I've spoke about most of these today, but let's just quickly go through this. So never work in isolation. It's great to say, oh, that's a thing. It's brilliant. But actually, for example, there is a procurement team in a NHS clinical commissioning group that is based next to a mortuary.
Oh my
Now not just that, but they're working in the basement, isolated from the rest of the building.
Goodness. Yeah.
Well, that's just not good.
No.
It's in most public sector procurement types, and get out of your area and go and work with the people that you are servicing or you're working with. So I think it's more about procurement people don't work in isolation. All the things I do are complex public sector requirements, and for me, I've noticed that actually they can be a lot less complex if you take away all the over process, over governance. You can discuss the elephants in the room, and that's, for me, that's what, because Agile is open, it allows you to discuss not just the elephant in the room, but the elephants in the room, because there are many of different sizes, and that's why for me, that's what Agile Procurement brings. Minimum viable governance, I would, this for me, the last few years I've been working on various projects and programs. I would be required to go to a governance panel for certain spend thresholds. I would be required to write a very long paper, about 10 pages long, submit it 2 weeks before the panel. I would go to the panel, I'd sit nervously outside the room, waiting to be summoned into this all-male boardroom. I'd have to tell them about my thing. Now, for me, the people that are doing governance on my requirement don't even know about my requirement. So minimum viable governance is about that. It's about, one, getting the people that are doing governance on you to know what they are doing governance on.
Yes.
Secondly, do we have to wait 2 weeks to submit a paper? Thirdly, do we have to go to a physical boardroom miles away from where you work? And then fourthly, do you have to wait for 2 weeks later to find out if you passed that governance thing? So 4 weeks straight away.
Wasted. Yeah, exactly.
Let's have daily governance. There's no point in giving people delegations of authority if they can't do anything with it.
No, sure.
Pass the responsibility along. The thing about boundaries change, I think we all know that, but unfortunately my profession are not so good at that. We are very much, we have our job objectives. We have to work in the area we work in, but people have to realize that boundaries do change. And I actually would like to put forward to my institute about applying Agile within job descriptions and person specifications,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's really quite important. So that's something I'm trying to work on at the side at the moment, applying. So if anyone knows any good, job descriptions and person specifications that can apply some elements of Agile, please do let me know.
Okay.
So yeah, lots of things. I won't go on to them all, but they're all common sense stuff which we in procurement need to do more of.
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, you give us quite an alarming sort of vision of procurement of maybe how it was or how it is in some organisations with all that process, with all that the extra. I mean, you're saying they're doing the minimum viable governance, but it's waiting for those 4 weeks to pass before you can get allowance to go ahead and make decisions and start the delivery. It's from an agile world looking at that, it's quite old school, I guess, in some respects, isn't it?
But yeah, it is. It's tax, but it is taxpayers' money. We have to remember that.
Of
and
course.
I'm the first to protect that. I'm the first to get value for each pound we spend. However, value is everywhere. By waiting around a month, there is no value in that.
No.
By having people on the governance boards that are doing governance on you who don't know anything about the thing they're doing governance on is not valuable.
No, exactly.
That has no value at all. That is a waste of taxpayers' money. So it's very important we do what we do. It's very important we have all the right checks and balances. But again, it's the word proportionate, we just have to apply that proportionality on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what an experience you've gone through, really, and what a process you've experienced to start at that, fresh-faced, in your suit, walking into GDS and have that whole experience of the change, really, that you obviously experienced straight away, and just sort of taking it on and embracing it, really.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very grateful of having that experience. And then when we applied it from one place and we went onto the digital marketplace and used it there. And I've managed to like I say, work in many different government places. And I always bring this with me. And also let's make work fun as well for people. People spend 8 to 12 hours a day associated with their work. Some people spend much longer. Let's make it slightly fun for them. Let's make people want to enjoy the hours they spend in the workplace.
Absolutely. So you're really setting out to make a difference, aren't you, with obviously your associates and the community that's building for Agile Procurement, which is fantastic.
Yeah, really, I'm trying. There is a interest. Interestingly, actually, Jenny, if you were to chop up the interest is very much from probably 2/3 non-procurement people and 1/3 procurement people in the Agile Procurement movement. And I think that's probably a good way to start it, because if we can get enough people sharing ideas and good practices, this could really quite help. And it's great now that my institution has acknowledged the need for at least talking about this, which has taken quite a while for me to do.
Well, I think coming back to the conference again, we were delighted to talk about it because it's such a movement that's inspiring, and obviously Agile is being embedded into that movement, which can only be a good thing for the value that you can give organisations, and obviously in the public sector you can give the public. It makes sense to us. It really does.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the case study you gave us at the conference, I remember someone coming out there and just going, that was amazing, because we obviously linked you with another 2 organisations, didn't we? But it was the straightforward, like, Agile delivery case studies, and the feedback was just very, very good. So again, thank you for your time to do that and to obviously open the doors on the understanding of this. And I know you're not on your own in that respect. Like you say, Mirko Kleiner, I mean, he did a great presentation also, and I think it's very much on topic at the moment. Agile procurement is something, it's not going to go away. It's only going to be further developed. And I think it's here to stay, in the respect that, the agile practices that we can really apply to procurement are going to make a huge difference, as you've already seen. I mean, you've got the facts, you've got the figures, really, haven't you? The evidence is there.
Exactly. It does work. Again, you have to apply different different styles, different rituals, different practices and methodologies to the different cultural settings you're in and the different requirements you're in. But I would ask anybody that that would like to be involved to contact me. You know, we can. I'm always happy to hear new ways of doing things. And again, I think I'm quite a rarity in my profession that I'm this adaptability thing, and always be prepared to acknowledge that things do change. It really does help. What interesting you talked about my presentation. Thanks for the positive remarks. But when I think there was about 100 people in the room, and when I asked 3 questions, you know, who knows about procurement, who's been involved in procurement, who's done a public procurement, I think 2 people out of the whole room were keeping their hands up for the whole thing. So.
Right.
But it's great to hear that at least some of the message got across, and hopefully moving forwards, I would love to hear from people from the Agile world and both my procurement world to pull this more together.
How can people make contact with you, David?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter. I'm at Kershaw _MCIPS, MCIPS. So please follow me there, Kershaw _MCIPS. I'm also on LinkedIn, David Kershaw MCIPS, and on email with david.kershaw@deltaprocurement.co.uk.
Fantastic. No, we appreciate that. That's brilliant. So going back to the conference then, this was your first conference as well, wasn't it, that you actually came along to? So what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I note at the start of this webinar you said 17 years, and I felt somewhat embarrassed that it's taking me that long. So apologies for that. For me, I wanted to. I'm sick and tired of people sort of knocking procurement, and that's what the whole point of this is about. You know, people are telling me how rubbish and slow and in the way it is. So I sort of thought, well, let me put an olive branch out there by saying that there is 1 or 2 of us in the procurement world trying to do some things, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to talk about it and hear some people. Thankfully, there were no hecklers. I was expecting some hecklers to boo me off the stage, but there were not any of those. In fact, response from that has been amazing. And not just from sort of the tech digital world. It's been from other parts of other categories we would call them in procurement. But love the conference, really great. I love the setup. It was great to go and hear about other people and what they do. I think there was only 2 of us there wearing a tie, which is quite interesting. Perhaps next time, if I'm allowed in, I will change my clothing.
Well, we do say dress code is casual, but I mean, yeah, some people like to wear ties. Sometimes the C-suite come along in ties still, and sometimes they don't. There's a huge change going on there as well. I think overall, I think that a lot of the feedback from the conference is the positivity of people and the openness. That whole trust and transparency that rings through Agile, I think, was very apparent there. Did you feel that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was not a single person that either approached me or I approached them that just turned away. Everybody there was willing to listen or to ask questions or to answer questions. It was great for me. I mean, the conference itself, for me, is what the whole Agile thing is to procurement and what it can make procurement do in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. There's great positivity around it. There really is. So, and like I said, thank you again for joining us at the conference and bringing your case study with such a great topic to discuss as well. I mean, GDS, people were aware of GDS, and obviously the government organisations that you've worked with as well as GDS, to kind of bring that experience and bring that insight into what's happening, and how the Agile techniques are being used. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, in fact, I've been contributing on other things as well, and there's stuff going global at the moment as well in terms of what other places are doing. There's a soon to be an OECD Agile Procurement playbook, which will be coming out soon. So we're now taking to the next level. And the brilliance of that is that it's iterative. It's
Yes.
not something that's just a manual that's going to sit somewhere that you have to request by post.
Yes.
It is going to live somewhere 24 hours a day, open to everybody.
Yes.
And when people provide feedback, the owners will amend it and update it. That is a great thing to do. So this is really getting somewhere now.
Absolutely. I mean, we're doing exactly the same with our Agile Digital Services product, for instance. I mean, that's what's in public beta currently. It will just go through its last review, and yeah, that will be an iterative process as well. But it's a qualification that's out there now. And what we did, we actually worked alongside GDS and looked at their life cycle and went with the alpha, beta, live system, which worked beautifully. So, there's a lot of correlation there, isn't there?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And I think all the various elements of training that can happen, we should explore. Only the last sort of month, I've had people from the finance sector talk to me about agile finance, and I know I mentioned that earlier, but that to me is like revolutionary. If we can get those guys on board, it seems like the cycle is really going to be happening.
Absolutely. Well, there's no stopping it because it is the future. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it, for it to go in that direction. The trust and transparency and all the other values, really, in agile techniques, they work. They've been shown to work. They've been shown to cut down everything that's getting in the way, the blockers really, to get to delivery. So it just makes sense, and they can also be shown to add so much value to the end user. And that's what it's all about. It's all about the customer centric. We need to put the customer at the center of everything.
Yeah, and the customer, it's. I think it's okay to talk about the customer in the public sector world as well, because regardless of taxation, each person pays some money for a service, whatever that service be it highways, be it transport, be it health, education, whatever. And I think it's good to think about a customer in a way. There are various levels of customer and customer service, but if we have that our sort of foresight moving forwards, I think it will really, really quite help and make these things we're trying to do for citizens better.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can only get better, certainly. Just out of interest, did you manage to sit in any of the keynotes at the conference this year? Because we had 5 keynotes in total, which was we were quite full, I think, in keynotes this year.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't. I spent most of my time networking, to be honest, because I felt that was the most valuable time for me to spend.
Yes.
I'm currently working on some quite problematic things, because my diary is quite busy. But what I tried to do is speak to. I spent a lot of time speaking to different training providers to understand what they could do in the agile procurement world. I spoke to people there who had procurement problems in their own organisations, and were requesting advice. To be absolutely honest with you, Jenny, when I came out of presenting, I couldn't really get anywhere without people trying to ask me questions. So I spent quite some time just dealing with that.
Fielding them, I would have thought. Yeah, no, I noticed that sometimes when speakers do come off the stands, it's like, yes, they need to be fielded, because people are just sort of make a beeline for them to put those questions to them that they weren't completely confident about putting them to them in front of everybody. So it's like, well, look, we've got this. Is there any way you can help, and how should we do this? And I mean, and that's great as well. That's what it's all about. It's all about that open communication, to be able to discuss things like that and have those moments of the learning insights that then they can take back to their organizations and say, well, they spoke to an expert. That was the other reason really behind Coaching Corner. Maybe next year we'll have to get you on Coaching Corner, David, to help people with their procurement issues or whatever they're facing. Maybe that might be a way forward also, because this is all going to be happening again next year.
Yeah, exactly. I think hopefully if we look forward to next year, it would be great to have some things that I can share more, and hopefully the agile procurement movement will be much stronger then. The tribe will have grown to some stronger degree, and most of what I'm doing is on evenings on my own, trying to put things forwards. And as I say, there is a movement of us getting there, but now it's time to, I think, go to that next level and there's lots of things that can be done. I have lots of experience and lots of advice to give, but instead of, I think, locking some of this down would really quite help move and help people moving forwards.
Absolutely, and by that time next year, you'll probably have a few more case studies under your belt as well, more evidence to share, which I think is really valuable for delegates when they're coming along to the conference, because that's really what they're after. That's gold, I think, in their opinion. They want those learning points that they can take back to their organisation and say, let's try it like this, let's do this. I've heard that this is a good idea, and I've heard evidence that this is a good idea, and maybe we should look at it like this. So it grows, doesn't it, from that point forward?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it really does. It was great also, sharing at the stage with PwC and Moonpig and hearing what they do. Mm-hmm. But I learned from them. I learned from their presentations, and that was quite interesting. But yeah, in terms of the Agile Procurement movement, we should definitely look to the future and what the next 12 months holds for this.
Yeah, well, look, keep us informed. It would be wonderful to, to send us regular updates and let us know how you're doing. Obviously, I'm in that LinkedIn group as well, so I'll see some activity there, and we'll join in as much as we can, definitely. But the larger things that are happening, maybe just send us a note every now and then. Keep us informed, and it'll be great to share your journey, really.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Thanks for your time today, and thank you for inviting me to speak at the Agile Business Conference 2018. I really enjoyed it, and it's great that I've managed to get some more followers to assist, comment, and advise on how to make Agile Procurement take the next level, really.
No problem at all, David. It's been an absolute pleasure to share this webinar with you. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jenny. Speak to you soon.
Okay. So this webinar series, the Agile Business Conference Reflective Insights, was brought to you in association with Agile Centre. And really, we have to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, like I did right at the start, because obviously without our sponsors, we couldn't be able to run the successful conference that we actually do. So Agile Centre, Certified Scrum, Agile Leadership, Capability Training, Scaled Agile Training and Consultancy. So there we go. We'll be doing another Agile Business Conference Reflective Insights webinar in due course. I think we've got another 2 or 3 maybe to get through, because there's so many people are wanting to talk to us and give us their insights and review some of their presentations, and they're just fascinating people to speak to, some of our speakers at the conference. So I will keep you informed and let you know when that's going to be. Just keep a check out on our website. This broadcast will be putting up on our website in due course as well, and then you'll also see the other ones from the post-reflective series and also the pre-conference series that we did as well. And then we're working behind the scenes now very thoroughly indeed to obviously plan our conference for next year. So please reserve the dates of the 25th and 26th of September 2019. We will be doing this all over again in a new format, new speakers, new energy, just everything all over again. And it will be fantastic if you can join us there. So please do. If you have any other feedback or you'd like to make contact with me directly, I'm more than happy to receive emails from you. It would be fantastic. So my email is jenny@agilebusiness.org. The website details are all on the bottom of the screen there for you as well. So from me from now, thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Bye-bye now.